Marina, 22 years old, was an independent young woman living in another city to attend university. On a rare free weekend, she decided to visit her mother, Clara, who lived in a quiet home with her stepfather, Henry. Married to Clara for 3 years, Henry had always been kind and attentive to Marina, treating her with care and respect. When she arrived, Marina was welcomed warmly. Her mother seemed excited to spend the weekend together, but unexpectedly work called Clara away for most of Saturday. This left Marina and Henry alone in the house. Over lunch, the two began to talk. Henry asked about her studies, friends, and future plans. Their conversation flowed easily, but as the day passed, Marina noticed something different in Henry's demeanor. His tone was as polite as ever, but his glances lingered just a second longer than usual, making her slightly uneasy. That afternoon, Marina decided to enjoy the view from the back porch, where the golden hues of the setting sun lit the horizon. Henry joined her, bringing 2 cups of coffee and pulling up a chair beside her. They talked about little things, movies, books, places Marina wanted to visit, but the pauses in their conversation seemed heavier than usual. "You've grown so much, Marina," Henry said softly. "It's hard to believe that the little girl I met is now this incredible young woman." Caught off guard, Marina blushed. "Thank you, Henry," she replied with a timid smile. But something about the moment felt out of place. Later that evening, as they cleaned up the kitchen together, they found themselves bumping into each other while reaching for the same dish. For a moment, they froze. Their hands briefly touched, and Marina looked up to meet Henry's gaze. There was something in his eyes, a mix of hesitation and intensity, that made her heart race. Henry quickly stepped back, clearing his throat. Marina averted her eyes, her thoughts swirling as she finished tidying up. That night, Marina stayed in her room, lying awake as the events of the day replayed in her mind. Nothing had truly happened, no words, no actions beyond the ordinary, but the unspoken tension between them felt undeniable. She didn't know how to process it, nor what it meant. When her mother returned home on Sunday, the house seemed to return to normal. Marina and Henry both acted as though the previous day had been nothing out of the ordinary. However, when it came time to leave, Marina decided to cut her visit short. As she said goodbye to Henry, she caught a fleeting look in his eyes, an expression that seemed to mix regret and something unspoken. Marina knew that whatever had occurred, it was something best left in the past. When Clara returned from her work trip on Sunday afternoon, she was full of energy and excitement. Marina had been preparing to leave earlier than planned, but her mother stopped her with a sudden suggestion. "Marina, why don't you stay one more night? Henry and I are going to a party tonight, and I think it would be good for you to come along. My friend Isabel will be there too. You remember her, don't you?" Marina hesitated. Her mother's enthusiasm was infectious, but after everything that had happened the day before, the idea of spending more time around Henry felt unsettling. "I'm not sure, Mom. I didn't pack anything for a party, and I've got assignments waiting for me back at school," she replied, trying to sound casual. Clara wasn't easily deterred. "Oh, nonsense. You've been working too hard. Isabel's bringing some dresses. You can borrow one. It'll be fun. Just relax for one night, please." Under her mother's persistent persuasion, Marina reluctantly agreed. That evening, Isabel arrived with a small suitcase of glamorous dresses and a bright smile. "Marina, you're going to love this. I brought a dress that will look perfect on you." While trying on one of Isabel's dresses in her room, Marina couldn't help but feel a knot tightening in her stomach. She didn't know what kind of party her mother and Henry were so eager for her to attend, but the air of mystery surrounding it unsettled her. The party was held at a sprawling countryside mansion surrounded by thick woods. The driveway was lined with lanterns, casting long shadows across the cobblestone path. Inside, the atmosphere was elegant but strangely subdued. Guests sipped wine and champagne, their hushed conversations punctuated by occasional bursts of laughter. Marina noticed immediately how different everyone seemed. The guests, dressed impeccably, carried themselves with an air of secrecy. Her mother was clearly in her element, chatting animatedly with Isabel and a group of elegantly dressed strangers. Henry, meanwhile, had disappeared into the crowd. Marina clung to Isabel, who was warm and reassuring. "This place is beautiful," Marina said, trying to keep her voice steady. Isabel nodded with a sly smile. "Oh, yes, but don't let the elegance fool you. There's always something more beneath the surface at gatherings like these." The cryptic comment only heightened Marina's sense of unease. As the evening progressed, she began to notice subtle but strange details. The way people glanced at her and whispered after she passed by, the occasional fleeting smirk or knowing look from strangers. It was as if everyone knew something she didn't. Marina finally spotted Henry across the room. He was talking with a small group of guests, but his eyes darted toward her the moment she entered his line of sight. Their gazes locked, and a shiver ran down her spine. He excused himself from the group and made his way toward her. "You look incredible tonight," Henry said, his voice low and smooth. Marina took a step back, instinctively putting distance between them. "Thanks," she replied curtly, trying to sound unaffected. Henry's expression shifted, but before he could say anything else, Isabel appeared beside them. "There you are, Marina. Come, let's get a drink," Isabel said cheerfully, pulling Marina away. As the night wore on, the party grew stranger. Marina overheard fragments of conversations that hinted at something darker, a ritual perhaps, or a secret shared among the guests. She noticed her mother speaking to someone in hushed tones, her demeanor unusually serious. At one point, Isabel leaned in close and whispered, "This isn't your kind of scene, is it? I'll make sure you're okay." Marina nodded, grateful for the support, but the sense of unease refused to leave her. Toward the end of the night, a sudden announcement was made. The host invited everyone to the library for a special tradition. Marina reluctantly followed the crowd, her nerves on edge. The library was dimly lit, its walls lined with ancient books. A large, circular table dominated the center of the room. As everyone gathered around, the host began to speak about secrets and trust, weaving a story that felt like both an invitation and a warning. Marina's pulse quickened. She glanced at her mother, who smiled at her as if nothing were out of the ordinary. Henry, however, stood a few steps away, his eyes fixed on Marina. She couldn't tell whether his gaze held concern or something more unsettling. When the tradition began, a seemingly harmless game of confessions, Marina decided she'd had enough. She whispered to Isabel that she wanted to leave. Isabel